Thanks very much, Simon, and thanks so much for asking the Public Interest Advocacy Centre to be here to support and stand in solidarity with all of you. The truth is, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't need to be here. People with disability every day are having to fight to not be discriminated against when they want to get around by public transport, when they want to get an education at their local school, when they want to get housing that meets their basic needs. That shouldn't be a fight. But the largest number of complaints every year to the Australian Human Rights Commission is for disability discrimination. More than half the complaints to the Australian Human Rights Commission every year are for disability discrimination. Because I can tell you as a lawyer that you have a right not to be discriminated against, that people are obliged to make reasonable adjustments, that there shouldn't be barriers to equal participation and full participation for people with disability. That's fine, but you shouldn't have to fight for it. People with disabilities shouldn't be expected to carry that. And there are plenty of people that just can't fight because they're too busy trying to get on with their lives. So I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't need to be here. And this is why we need government to step up. And government needs to take seriously disability inclusion and be proactive about including, about co-designing, about working with people with disability every step of the way, so that the things we talk about, your international human rights, your rights under the Disability Discrimination Act, so that they're real things that you feel, that people with disability feel every day. Because that's what it means to be an Australian, is that we are all part of this community together. And we can't do that as long as government is not prepared to step up and lead and be proactive. So thank you for having us here today, and the Public Interest Advocacy Centre is really proud to stand in solidarity with you.
Thanks. And anyone that's got disability discrimination matters should also call through organisations like for support. I would now like to get Declan Lee, studying law, volunteering at the Academic Legal Centre, to talk about his experiences with accessible public transport. Declan, I hand over to you.
Thank you. I'd like to speak about my personal things around accessing wheelchair taxis. So over the past 3 years, I've found accessing wheelchair taxis becoming increasingly difficult. For example, last year I had 3 appointments in one day. Traveling from Cerebral Palsy Alliance headquarters for an appointment with my occupational therapist, to then have 2 appointments at the University of New South Wales. I booked a taxi at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was waiting 90 minutes for a taxi to turn up. And I booked through the 13 cabs app to book a wheelchair taxi. 3 taxis accepted my booking and notified me that they were on their way, and then they cancelled the booking. And so I was left stranded for 90 minutes until I had my regular driver could actually come and pick me up after finishing up another job. Luckily I was still able to make my appointments on time because there was 2 hours between. But it meant that I could have been doing other things during that time. The other thing I wanted to quickly speak about is the fact that the government isn't doing enough to support those people with disabilities. They're also making sure that there's enough wheelchair accessible taxis out on the road. The government needs to start more incentive to those taxi drivers to not only purchase and modify a wheelchair accessible vehicle, but also reduce the taxi and the registration costs down, especially considering that inflation rate's gone up and the taxi rates have remained the same in the last 20 years. Thank you. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Declan. In moving forward on transport still, and also transport communication, Ella Darling is going to talk about her experiences as a woman with a disability and the troubles that she's had in using the accessible public transport system. Ella, would you step forward?
Where do I step?
Anyway, he's
Okay. Hi, my name is Ella Darling. I have an intellectual disability. I'm sick and tired of being treated badly by trained pool staff. I want things to change. It's hard for me to read transport information and timetables. My mum asked me to ask for help. She says the best people to ask are the train guards and bus drivers. I will tell you a bit of the story. So I got a new job, was very excited. I asked a train guard about what time is the train to go to Central, and he said, you can't be that stupid. And I just said, look, I can't read very well, I need help. And so I called my manager and said, look, I don't think I can make it to work. And then she said, it's okay, you just come in anyway. And another story was last week, actually. I was waiting for the train, and the train guard was really rude to me because I asked him why the train was delayed. And he said, go on to the Transport Australia website. And I said to him, I'm not a very good reader, could you help me with that? And he goes, you can't be that stupid. And I felt really upset and angry, and I just wanted to just not come to work. So I want things to change. So I want more staff to get disability training. I want more information with ease read and understanding, and thank you for listening to my story.
Thanks so much, Ella, for pointing out that transport's about a whole of journey experience, and that planning and the communication around customer service needs to be supportive, not hostile and adversarial. So thank you very much for your experiences. We move on to Susan Wood, and Susan's going to talk about an issue affecting a lot of people in New South Wales, but with a particular set of circumstances in trying to get accessible rental accommodation. Susan.
Hi, my name is Susan Wood, and hands up or shout if you have ever had issues looking for a place to live. Yeah? Yeah? In 2017, I lived in a government accommodation and I needed to move to a private rental. It took me 4 months looking over at 100 properties. I had to go to 4 different real estate agents and I had to inspect 21 houses from the inner west of Sydney to Western Sydney just to try and find somewhere because they didn't have the right accessibility. We also needed to make sacrifices on the fact that I might have had to make sacrifices with the kitchen, with the bathroom, just because I couldn't park my car in the car park. And eventually, I found a place to live. But I had to sacrifice my safety in the bathroom because it had a wheelchair. Well, it had a car park that I could get my wheelchair out of. And when we went downstairs to the car park, because we looked at all the blueprints beforehand, I noticed that there was a dozen accessible car parks in the car park. And I'm like, why? And it turned out that there was an accessible apartment on every floor of the building. But no real estate agent had told us. No one on Domain or realestate.com.au even had anything about disability accessible housing. It's really difficult to try and find somewhere to live, let alone find somewhere to live with a disability. New South Wales state government is one of 2 states that won't sign up for the National Construction Code silver level of building and planning, which just basically means things like wider door frames, not having to sacrifice things like going into a bathroom, not having to sacrifice things like you might be able to jump off the stairs, but maybe you won't. Very simple adjustments that people with disabilities need, that we need to start doing yesterday. That would only help people with not just disabilities, people who are getting older. We have an older population as well that also need to have those accessible needs. State government really needs to start taking seriously that we are at nearly 20% population for people with disabilities. We can't stop being ignored forever over the things that we continually talk about. I'm actually sick of having this conversation, but we need to keep having this conversation because it's so important. Thank you.
Thanks very much. what this also highlights is that if we want to make changes to rental accommodation or even strata purchase title, there are a whole series of other mechanisms that you have to go through to seek approval. And body corporates quite often stifle the inclusion of basic access like self-opening doors or handrails or whatever it might be that needs to be put into those communal spaces to make it more accessible to everybody. So yeah, we need to sign up to the National Construction Code and get greater supply on board. I'm now going to hand over to Tracy Carnes to talk about her experiences of navigating the education system with her daughter and and dealing with the school situation. Education and employment are linked, and this is a really important story on getting people educated and understanding. Tracy.
So I'm a single parent of a very happy, outgoing, cheeky, compassionate, and resilient 12-year-old girl named Eva. So when schooling started for Eva, I wanted her to attend her local school like all the other kids, but I was met with what I came to know of as gatekeeping. So where the school tells you things like, we don't have enough funding to support your child here, she belongs in a segregated class or a special school. One private school said to me, maybe you can fund your own private teacher's aide to go to school with Eva. Another said, we don't think your daughter will be happy here. So we were coerced into a special school and then a segregated class where the bar is low, the expectations are low, and the outcomes for the kids are poor. There has been some bright spots in Eva's education journey. I fought hard to have her enrolled in her local school in a mainstream class where the school found the funds in their budget to support her all day. And with the help of an amazing teacher, she thrived for the last 2 years of primary school. This teacher once said to me, I wish you could see how much the other students adore Eva. They had a secret ballot to vote for the class senator, and everyone voted for Eva. Her presence in the class helped many hard to control children with their self-development. Some of the kids would be running after her with her hat or her jacket that she'd forgotten, or they deliberately passed the ball to her in soccer so she could score. So inclusion's a win-win, right? Those classmates that Eva learns alongside are learning in real time how to accept difference, how to create, through lived behaviour and attitudes, a more inclusive, flexible and thriving society. Not just for my daughter, but for all young people young and old, of all abilities and persuasions. This year, Eva started high school, where the gatekeeper said to me, we don't have kids as disabled as your daughter at our school. But I persisted, and finally they offered Eva partially and for half days. They said they didn't have the funds to support her all day. I'm working full time, and having Eva to a half day means she finishes at 12 and I finish work at 6. So she has a privately paid carer at enormous cost, which isolates her from her peers, and she's missing out on the education that she deserves. I believe Eva has a lot of potential, but the chances of her reaching her potential are having an independent and happy life where she has a job, contributes to society, where the connections and friendships fostered during her school years continue, all depend on her being included at school, learning and growing with her same age peers in a mainstream class with support. A fully inclusive education system benefits all kids, and Eva just wants to be like everyone else.
That's a fantastic story, Tracy, but it also makes me incredibly angry. There was a federal court action in 2000 that set the precedent for education in New South Wales, Scarlett Finney versus Morgan Hills Grammar, where there were hundreds of us out on the streets federal court hearing is handed down, why should Tracy and Eva have to go through these same issues 24 years later? The education department knows what's required. The independent schools know what's required. Why are we fighting these battles over and over again? The emotional labour on Tracy and Eva is terrible and affects their everyday living, where all we want is ordinary lives, doing ordinary things without having to come out and fight. Well, we've got the election coming up, and I think now I'd like to just thank all the speakers for today for presenting their positions, and hand over to the advocacy organisation for the year today to field any questions from the media that there are. So thank you for coming, thank you for listening, thank you for
Thanks,
providing
everyone.
your story.